How often do you rotate strength and hypertrophy blocks? Find out my opinion in today's Q&A. Selman here from wynstrength.com, where the goal of the channel is to help you get a little bit stronger every single day. So today is the first question in the Wynn Strength Q&A series, where I attempt to answer your questions in under 5 minutes. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future questions, and if you do have a question you want me to address in a future video, leave them in the comments below or shoot me a message on Instagram. So the question of today was asked by my good friend Derek Clark over at Clark Family Fitness. He's also got a new YouTube channel that's starting up, so I highly recommend checking out his Instagram and YouTube. I'll leave links below. But we'll get to the question: how often do you rotate strength and hypertrophy blocks? So let's start the timer. So before I really answer the question and dive into it, I do want to point out that the question does highlight a really good shift in my training over the last few years, is that I've started to dedicate specific blocks and time periods to hypertrophy and strength training. And that's where I was training before. I was kind of floundering, where I was kind of just throwing whatever I want at the wall and it's seeing if it stuck. And that's just doing all sorts of training with no real roadmap to success, as it were. So after a certain point in your lifting, it starts to become harder to both get bigger and stronger simultaneously. At some point in your training, those two strategies are going to divert, where what's optimal for one isn't necessarily optimal for the other. Yes, they do go hand in hand, but they are two sides of the same coin. So as your muscles get bigger, you're going to be able to produce more force on the outside world, which means you'll be able to lift more weights more often, which will help you get bigger. So yes, they do feed off of each other, but you can't exactly attack both at the same time to get efficient and effective results, the best use of your time, as it were. So what's interesting is that muscle size only accounts for around 50 to 65% of your strength levels, or how much weight you can actually lift. And that's given the same strength levels between two people. So he found that really only accounted for just over half of it accounts for half of the factors as to why some people are stronger than others. The other reasons include neural adaptations, your skill level, your anthropometry, so your body measurements, even your psychological factors that day. When you go into the gym and you feel awesome, other days you don't feel so good, and you see your performance can be affected by how you feel. And there's a whole host of other individual factors that affect your strength levels on any given day. Secondly, let's define what the terms are. So hypertrophy is simply the increase in size of your muscle fibers, and this is distinct from hyperplasia, where you're actually increasing the number of muscle fibers. The research is still out, as far as I'm aware, as to A, whether that's possible, and B, how to do that with training. So most people generally talk about hypertrophy because that's the most researched one and the way that we know how to build muscle. The second term, strength, is simply our ability to exert force on an external load. This is very specific, so if you're strong at the squat, it's going to be different to your strong at the deadlift. Your strength at the deadlift, and your 1 rep max strength is going to be different to your 10 rep max strength. So strength is really just how much force you can exert on a load given a bunch of factors. And one of the important questions that this question raises is, how do you organize your training? And that's really the crux of the issue here. And the way you have to frame that and how you have to answer this yourself is this appropriate now? That's really what we're asking every single time we look at what we should include in our training. When you have context and a plan, this question rules out a lot of other training options. We could do everything and achieve nothing, but we can do one thing and achieve greatness. Once I personally started to structure my training in a more strategic fashion, I found that I made a lot better progress over the years, and there was less stress over my progress. I wasn't worried about constantly hitting new PRs in the gym, new 1 rep maxes in the gym during hypertrophy sessions, because that wasn't the goal of that training block. And similarly for strength blocks, I wasn't concerned about weight gain, weight loss, muscle size, aesthetics, or anything like that, because that wasn't the goal. My goal was to get stronger, not to get bigger. So it gives that framework, and it sets that long-term view so that you're able to be successful over the years rather than successful in one day. what I found it hard was to find research that actually pinpointed optimal timeframes for each of these. But the ones that I did find was that it's possible to increase your lean body mass by about 5% in 9 to 12 weeks. With that in mind, most of the programs you do see hover right around that 8 to 21 week length cycle, with certain structural breaks in between, but that's kind of how I like to structure my training. So to answer the question is that I usually run my hypertrophy blocks maybe 8 to 16 weeks, and my strength blocks are usually 8 to 12 weeks. This just comes down to personal preference. I notice when I lift a lot heavier, my joints and whatnot still feel a bit more achy, whereas when I lift lighter for more reps, I'm able to get more longevity in my lifting. So for the sake of but just to wrap up, I've got to go over the 5 minutes here. But for the sake of my own personal history of training, just to suit my own body, I do have hypertrophy sessions slightly longer than my strength sessions, and that's just so I can keep lifting for years to come rather than lifting for today. So, kind of right within the time frame, we're going to get this in over the course of the next coming weeks as we do more of these Q&As. So if you got some value out of this video, hit that like button below and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on the future Wynn Strength Q&A series. If you want your question answered, reach out to me on Instagram. I'll leave links below, as well as also dropping a comment below and I can make a video in the future. This has been Selman from Wynn Strength. Thank you for watching, and remember, never stop learning and never stop lifting.